Spending money to show people how much you have is the fastest way to have less money. What we call money itself is actual debt. And debt is money. If everyone owes money, then who exactly is this money owed to? What if debt is not about the physical money that we use every day? What if it's a tool of ownership used or leveraged by the lenders? But this borrowing comes with serious consequences, the kind that often impact regular people like you and me. Thank you so much for taking few minutes to hang out with me today. I am really excited about what we are talking about today because it is something that we all deal with, even if we don't realize it. Today, we are going to talk about debt, ownership, and the people who are all taking part of the system. So, if you're ready, I am ready also. Let's dive in. I am from here. I have lived and studied here. I now reside here. Maybe you are from here, or maybe you're here, or anywhere around here, or maybe you live around the Asian. We all live in a giant web with invincible thread connecting every city, everyone, every bank, and every government. We are all part of this massive web that is connected by one common thread, and that thread is debt. This invincible force shapes our decision, it drives our action, and it sometimes keeps us trapped in a cycle where progress feels so difficult. Don't get me wrong, I like what money can do. It provides security and stability. It enables freedom and opportunities. With money, you can build, or maybe you want to buy an asset. It also helps us to fast track growth and innovation, while not forgetting its ability to increase influence and power. But I cannot also stop wondering about the nature of money, how it flows through our hands, and what most of us think as wealth in reality is some kind of invincible system that binds us all together. Debt is a force that shapes our lives and influences nation, whether in the developing world or maybe you live in the West. We all experience some level of financial treadmill where we find ourselves running faster and harder, yet staying in the same place with little to show for all of our efforts. The idea of living debt-free sounds great, but its reality seems so impossible for most of us. Cost of living continues to grow, interest on loans is hard to keep up with, and the familiar comfort of our homes will not even be possible if not for debt. While owning property or asset is often seen as the ultimate goal, there is always a catch that rarely gets proper attention. Whether you're in the UK, Australia, Canada, Singapore, or all the way to Nigeria, the loans we take to buy our house or maybe the car that we bought, for the most part, ties us to the bank for decades. In the beginning of this video, I had called that thread a debt, but in actual sense, I think is more of ownership. In my last video, I had talked about how credit and debt are two sides of the same coin. When you have a credit, someone else holds the same equivalent debt. In this delicate balance, what we call money itself is actual debt, and debt is money. And this is how I arrive at that conclusion. When you borrow money, you are essentially creating a debt. Directly or indirectly, that debt becomes part of the global money supply because the lender, maybe it's a bank or some other entities, can use that debt and they record it in their books as an asset. Since you will be paying it back fully, and at this time, you will be paying it with interest. So in simple terms, the promise to pay back your loan or maybe your debt can be used in our economy just like money. So debt is seen as a form of money because it represents a future exchange for a value. So if the most money that we use is created through borrowing and the debt we owe is closely tied to the credit that we have been given, it makes more sense to me to say both money and debt move hand in hand, constantly shifting in this financial dance that we all take part of. So that being said, what if debt is not about the physical money that we use every day? What if it's a tool of ownership used or leveraged by the lenders? When you take out a mortgage or maybe a car loan, you may have your name on the property, but your ownership is still in its infancy state. Your ownership is still conditional. Despite how much we value ownership, achieving it nowadays is becoming increasingly difficult. You may live in a house and say that you own it, but if debt is tying you to that house, do you truly own it? If something were to happen and you could not pay your mortgage, the true owners, the lenders, they could reclaim the property, and that is true ownership. It is the power to take back what was once given when a breach has happened based on the contract that was signed. And in Proverbs 22 verse 7, it is no wonder the Bible talks about the fact that the borrower is a slave to the lender. At that point, it occurs to me to ask this question. Have you ever stopped to wonder, if everyone owes money, then who exactly is this money owed to? Who actually is extending their ownership on every one of us? When we zoom out to the global level, the issue of debt becomes more complex. Just like an individual's, country also borrow money to fund things like growth, they fund things like infrastructure and maybe some level of public services. But this borrowing comes with serious consequences, the kind that often impact regular people like you and me. The interest on payments alone can take a huge chunk of the country's budget. The money that could have been used to build hospitals or maybe schools. And for some countries, the cycle of borrowing becomes a trap, where the cost of debt becomes so high that it starts to outweigh the benefit. And slowly, it would lead that country to some level of financial disaster. Does that sound familiar? As at the time of this recording, the United States of America is at $37 trillion in debt. And with the new big beautiful bill that just got passed, it is said that another 3 trillion or maybe 4 trillion will be added to the $37 trillion. And that should trigger something inside of you. That will be maybe another video. So going back to my question, so who do we owe? Let us say I owe my local bank. This is me, and I owe my local bank. My local bank in turn owes other banks. The other banks in turn, they owe the central bank. Central bank, they owe the government and maybe some investors. The government also, they owe international lenders. The international lenders, they owe the financial market. And this is where the likes like bond market, the stock market, Forex. And mind you, I also have put my money that I took from the local bank. I have also put that same money in stocks. I bought bonds, and maybe I invested in Forex. In other words, the cycle creates a loop where debt is constantly recycled at all levels, with different actors borrowing and lending at every stage. And the real concentration of ownership lies with the institution higher up the chain, the likes of the central banks, the governments, and international financial bodies. While individuals, businesses, and local banks are essentially caught in this web of debt, constantly paying it forward. Morganhousel is the author of the book Psychology of Money. He said, and I quote, "Spending money to show people how much you have is the fastest way to have less money." So here is what I think. If you can, please live within your means. Stop putting effort into impressing others while you are left depressed. And avoid borrowing for things that you don't truly need, while you focus on a lifestyle that does not heavily depend on credit. The less debt you have, the more financial freedom you will enjoy. That new car will age. The expensive vacation, does it really worth it? Is that house for status keeping that constantly put holes in your pocket? Can you truly afford that purchase? We have to spend time to educate ourselves. Financial literacy is a must. It is a key if you truly want to take part of owning something that is substantial and worthwhile. We have to understand how interest work and the real cost of borrowing. The more informed you are, the better decision you will make. And I know and I understand that we may not be able to influence national debt, but we can take charge of our own personal finances by ensuring that we do not fall into the same cycle of debt that can lead to financial instability. And if everything now resolves to the fact that you must use debt, then make sure that that debt get paid quickly and don't let it just sit there and gather interest until it becomes a monster that you cannot overcome. Don't forget that debt is a tool in the hand of the lender to control and to own anything that you may think it is yours. If you found value in this video and you like it, my last video is about mortgage. I have linked it over here. Click it, watch it. Until next time, God bless you and stay blessed.